Welcome viewers. This is Pratim Ranjan Bose. This is part of the discussion series that Iravati Research and Communication Center holds. In today's episode, we will discuss how and what changed in undivided Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. As we all know, that the state was divided into two union territories in August 2019. Jammu and Kashmir has been witnessing huge investments in infrastructure. This includes both. I think a lot of it is going into connectivity, but there has also been very significant, investments in social infrastructure. By social infrastructure, I'm actually taking out some physical infrastructure like power, like irrigation, right? The couple of them are very big ticket, like the Udhampur, Srinagar, Baramulla rail line, and there has been a Shapur Kundi, if I could spell it right,
Kandi.
Shapur Kandi
Shapur
Dam
Kandi.
that is coming up in Punjab, which will, from where I think Jammu will benefit a lot. And then there is this Chhatargala tunnel that has recently been taken up. The projects, bulk of the projects have actually been initiated, roughly 2 decades ago. The Manmohan Singh government initiated a lot of things.
Right.
But probably they have gained momentum in this decade only.
Right.
So how do you see? We would also, we are talking on undivided the whole area. So Ladakh, for example, a lot of things are coming up, and Ladakh is coming up as a renewable energy hub. We find the first hydrogen station. Right. So infrastructurally, how do you see Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh together coming up?
Okay. So let us put some context. You have neighboring Himachal, which is a mountainous state, and you have Jammu and Kashmir, that is also a mountainous state. So policymakers in Jammu and Kashmir will always tell you, look, this is a mountainous state and its connectivity is a problem. The fact is, Himachal Pradesh has single-mindedly pursued its connectivity goals. So what do you have? If you look at road coverage per square area, Himachal Pradesh is 4 times that of Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, now you may say Jammu and Kashmir is very big, etc., etc. Half of that particular area is either with China or with Pakistan. Now then you may also say, what about Ladakh? Take away Ladakh. Even in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, connectivity is a fraction of that of Himachal Pradesh, and it is not because of lack of spending. The amount of investment, if you look at the state budgets, the amount of capital spending on paper dwarfs that of Jammu and Himachal Pradesh, and it has happened for a consistent period of time. But the fact is, you do not see roads on the surface. The fact remains that. Now, as to why that happened, we can talk about later on. Now, let us come to the national highway.
From my limited travel in the state, I also saw that.
Yes. Now, let us come to the national highway projects. It is true that during the Manmohan Singh, the MMS government, a lot of things were announced. But let us face it, nationally too, the National Highway Authority projects practically ground to a halt, and it basically fell on Nitin Gadkari to again raise it.
Yeah, that's a countrywide phenomenon.
Countrywide phenomenon.
To post 2009, things have almost come to a grinding halt.
Yeah. And as this is true for state, all the states of the union, it's also true for Jammu and Kashmir. It had to be a Nitin Gadkari who had to basically breathe life into these projects.
And that railway line project was stalled.
Now, it is clear that by December 2022, Jammu and Kashmir will be connected to the national rail grid. Right now, there seems to be no interruption. Work is going on in full pace. The arch of the Chenab Bridge was completed, and that was
the world's tallest river bridge.
Yes, it was a very emotional moment. Everything is in line. So where connectivity is concerned, rail connectivity is concerned.
I was reading somewhere out of 170 plus odd tunnels, something 120 plus has been already been completed. I
That
think
was 1 year
last
ago.
100 odd kilometers are to be connected on that line.
Yeah, yeah, they'll be done soon. There are a couple of problematic stretches, but they're being done. Not a problem at all. It's going to be done. Let us look at the national highway. The national highway is there till Udhampur, and Udhampur to a place near a tunnel called Nashri. Connectivity is being laid out, and on the other side, the tunnel is, I think, has been inaugurated. The tunnel that connects Banihal, which is in Jammu
Atal
division,
tunnel.
Kazikund, that also has been connected. So within no time at all, you will have a massive highway, and without interruption, you will be able to travel from Delhi to any part of Kashmir.
In fact,
Baramulla,
I
etc.
was reading somewhere that Chhatarkala tunnel can
Okay,
actually develop the most prolific part of Kashmir.
no, the Chhatarkala tunnel basically goes to another. See, people have a tendency to focus on Jammu division, Jammu town, and along the highway to Kashmir. Now, if you on the way to Jammu, it is crossed by the Chenab River, this particular stretch. Now, to the left of Jammu or to the west, to the east of Jammu, along that particular river is the Doda region. A lot of
Doda
people call
region.
it the Chenab Valley, but it's the Doda region. When it comes to tourism, its potential is immense, immense. I have a tendency, I show photos from this particular region to people and I ask them where it is from, and they keep on saying Kashmir, and I tell them, no, it's part of Jammu region. It is so amazingly beautiful. Okay. And that, unfortunately, connectivity to those particular areas was very, very bad. Now, the tunnel to Chhatarkala connects this particular area with the rest of the country. And since this area is also connected to Kashmir through other roads, there is yet another road to the valley. So the valley is connected, but the primary intention is to connect this entire region, which is a huge region.
Has work started for that project?
DPR is complete, and if not that project, there are other projects which serve the same purpose, for which work is being started.
A highway is already under construction.
Highway is already under construction. Sections of the highway have been chosen; they are already under
construction. Right. So
connectivity is not a. So connectivity, they're giving massive push to connectivity issues, no doubt about it, and that is one of the major problems that separated Jammu and Kashmir from Himachal. Himachal has massive connectivity. You see,
yes.
people talk about the lack of land. Jammu Kashmir had land, but where land existed, roads did not go. Therefore, land for industry did not exist because there was no connectivity. If you improve connectivity in Jammu and Kashmir, in many places where land is available, land becomes available for industrialization. And land is available. You just have to ensure that your roads go to those particular places. That's all. That's one
roads, of the teleconnectivity, both are important. Yeah. I had been to places near Bandipur and etc., where the connectivity had been so poor.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. And the other thing, of course, is power. I mean, Himachal manages its power far, far better than Jammu and Kashmir. And unless there is power and unless there is connectivity, industry will not come. In fact, no business activity can happen unless there is these two things, the connectivity and power.
And you need water for any sort of industrial activity.
Water, fortunately, Jammu Kashmir is a water abundant state. There is no shortage of water.
But it keeps flowing on.
It keeps flowing on, but you can always use water.
Right.
You can always use water. You can use water.
Right. So infrastructurally, how, in say over a span of say 5 years, where are we going to see this state in, if I ask you to put say on a scale of 10, where it is now and where it is going to be?
The way it is going, I will say 6. I will say 6 or at most 7. I'll tell you why. I envisage all the district towns being connected through these particular roads, which is a good thing. But what differentiates Jammu and Kashmir from Himachal is that you go to any village in Himachal, it is connected. Right. This is not true and will not be true for quite some time in Jammu and Kashmir, because Jammu and Kashmir has started this process very late, and given its hilly terrain, you require a lot of resources and a lot of time to ensure that certain villages have connectivity, which is not the case in Himachal Pradesh. In Himachal Pradesh, you can go to some pretty remote villages by road, not a problem at all. You cannot do that in Jammu and Kashmir. In fact, you just off the highway, you will have villages with large habitations, but no road connectivity. But no road connectivity. That is why I say 6 or 7, 5 years hence, because Jammu and Kashmir has been a very late
This,
entrant.
this is where probably these rural bodies have a large role to play.
Indeed, a very large role to play because it's a local pressure. So local voices, when they make themselves heard at the various levels, then it becomes an irresistible voice. Because I envisage after some time that willy-nilly you have to give the powers to the district development councils when it comes to road construction also. I mean, some roads will have to be handled by them at their level. Exactly who does it, the local PWD does it, or what, that mechanism will have to be settled later on. But this is something that the DDCs will be forced to take up. I know in Jammu and Kashmir, connectivity is a problem. I happen to be the director of a particular campus in Punch, very near the line of control. If I'm on the road in Punch town, I'm okay, but I can see villages which are not connected. I can see villages which are not connected. No road goes to these particular villages. Pressure will be on from those panchayats to the block development councils and to the district councils. Give us connectivity. How can this be resisted? You have to do it.
Exactly. This is a move we saw in West Bengal also. One of the reasons why
Indeed.
left kept winning for pretty long time is one, that they built. I mean, it's not best of the roads. I'm not saying that, but
But they
I
are
mean, there
roads.
was nothing. They ensured
Yes.
that people get the
Yes.
basics.
Yes.
So obviously, this is very, and this is also I saw in Tripura. Very
Yes.
good work.
Yeah.
Among the northeastern states, Tripura is very good in taking the road to the village. I mean, almost 97, 98% villages you could reach by road. That is a case. So that takes us to the last question. Now, this region has become pretty hot for many reasons, and it has been hot always. You already mentioned that more than half or more than half has already gone. But the CPEC that is coming up in Pakistan, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is can really throw up a kind of an economic pressure. If you see development on the other side of the border and better economy, better opportunities, things can go wrong. So post this political development of including ensuring one system in the abrogation of Article 370, many companies expressed willingness to go there, and some of them really caught my attention, like ISB, Indian School of Business, probably wanted to set up shop, and which is a better place than Kashmir to set up Jammu to set up a shop. Such beautiful, to study, the best place for academics actually, ideally. Then tourism, I saw a lot of this fun rides and kind of projects. There were hospitality projects, Heidel projects. At least 3 cement companies expressed interest. Now, well, I understand COVID, and for out of the 2 years, 1.5 years is taken by COVID. So I don't really expect much to happen. I mean, when the entire everything was down, it's not right to expect. But how do you see the economic trajectory?
Okay.
I'll expect you to do a realistic assessment, because industry, first of all, you are not going to put up a huge manufacturing facility in that part of the country. Second, industry has its own choices. I mean, right. Even in plains, West Bengal is plains, but it hasn't come, right?
Look,
so
industry can go to China. It's
right.
Global. It can go to China also. Okay.
Right.
Now let's come to the CPEC first. Okay. As things stand today, you see, I used to be part of this cross LOC trade business. We were trying to promote cross LOC trade, investment, etc. And one of the things that we realized, and people across the LOC in the part of Jammu and Kashmir that lies in Pakistani hands. When they came over to Jammu and when they came over to Srinagar, the amount of propaganda that Pakistan had been playing, it became very, very clear to them. For if you look at, you see, even with limited development, if you compare what exists on this side of the LOC to what exists on the other side, Muzaffarabad, etc., etc., there is no comparison.
Mostly it
And
is. I mean,
secondly,
those who have
yes,
seen that, I haven't been
yes,
fortunate to go out those, but those who have seen, I think you are one of them, right?
I have not seen them, but question
But
is,
whosoever
I
had
have,
been, I heard there is
yes,
nothing.
yeah, but we hear it from the horse's mouth. People come over and tell us. The fact remains that they were impressed with the institutions that they saw out here. Functioning courts, proper contracts, proper business laws, etc., etc. And by the way, many of these people from POK are actually businessmen from in England. They are POK people, but all these so-called Indian restaurants in England happen to be by Mirpuris and Muzaffarabadis. So they knew how to do business. They were in the United Kingdom, and when they came over to this side of the LOC, they were extremely impressed. And all this talk about 7 lakh soldiers, etc., etc., that is bandied about, it became clear to them this was all false. Now let's come to the CPEC per se. You see, initially there was excitement about CPEC in some circles in Kashmir because they thought that it would put India on the defensive. But right now, if you look at CPEC, even there is a massive problem with CPEC and the these belt and road corridors projects where China is concerned, because it is seen to be a dead trap. Okay, given the fact that it is seen to be a dead trap, and Pakistan itself is having misgivings about CPEC, that but section of Kashmiris who are talking about CPEC have basically now clearly shut up. The other thing is, if the Chinese are building the CPEC and if it is so good, and if they wanted India to participate, one is the name becomes problematic because it's traveling through Jammu and Kashmir. So to put a name like Pakistan out there and not take India's permission was problematic. But suppose through some creative legal fiction we were to participate, all they have to do is to give us connectivity through Punjab or give it connectivity through Ladakh, any place. You see, if we get access to Central Asia, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, etc., etc., it would be good for us. But it turns out that the Chinese do not want us to do not want to give us connectivity at all. So all this talk about CPEC is nonsensical. And the people of the northern areas, Gilgit-Baltistan, when they look at Ladakh, Kargil or Leh, they look at the autonomous district councils, they feel angry at what exists on this side of the LOC compared to their level of extreme disempowerment on the other side of the LOC. So CPEC is in a sense not a factor. Now let me come to economic activity in Jammu and Kashmir where tourism is concerned. The moment the government had put in a lot of security measures in Kashmir, so tourism was difficult. Even then tourist was coming, because let us face it, we have a large middle class and the middle class want to go to places at least during summer. And in 2019, you saw that Himachal was practically inundated. And in
Why
2020,
2019? I mean, just after second wave, see what is
yes,
happening, see the pictures.
absolutely.
People gone mad out of
Yeah,
1.5 1 year full sitting at home. I mean,
absolutely. People want to go to Kashmir. Okay, by the way, if you look at tourist numbers, absolute tourist numbers, Jammu is practically 1 crore. These people come to Mata Vaishno Devi, but they stay for a short period of time and they go back. Because Jammu's scenic areas, which can rival Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh, have never been pushed. If you push Jammu, then Jammu's tourist flows can match that of Himachal Pradesh without any problem at all. They can. A, infrastructure does not exist. Carrying capacity does not exist because this is an ecologically fragile region and you have not created the institutions to handle this particular load. Srinagar, Kashmir gets about 2 million, 1 million tourists, but these are upper middle class people who spend a lot. But the carrying capacity of the valley can easily be increased a number of times. And you see, tourists have a tendency to set up base in Srinagar. Actually, they can set up base in any part of the valley because the valley is actually flat. So it's not as if every part is mountainous. It is beautiful throughout. So you can set up base anywhere. And the kind of investment that is required to do that is, I think, easily forthcoming. Tour operators, travel agents, they will tell investors, look how beautiful this particular place is. When it comes to the heavy tourist season, if you walk along the Dal Lake, you will think that you are either in Calcutta or even Gujarat. You can get by from one end of the Dal to the other end of the Dal by speaking Bengali or Gujarati. You don't have to know Hindi at all. Such is the flow of tourists. Now the question is, so Jammu Kashmir to tourism in Jammu and Kashmir can be several times what it is now. And why do I stress tourism? Because the employment multiplier of tourism is highest across industries. It's very labor intensive. It requires skilled labor. It requires unskilled labor. It requires semi-skilled labor. So what happens is, when you promote tourism, government employment, that pressure to create government employment, that is reduced tremendously, and private employment increases manifold. And given the fact that consumption is in situ, GST collections also rise. GST basically is on consumption. So this is a win-win situation for Jammu and Kashmir. Now let us.
Yeah, it's basically a consuming economy. Has
it's
to
a
be.
consuming economy.
Has to be because of its terrain. Unless we develop some special types of industries there.
Okay.
Like
now, when it comes to industries, you cannot have mass producing industries. You have to have niche industries which are high in value and low in volume.
right.
Now, if you look, for example, if you look at Kashmiri handicrafts, the cost of transportation of the handicrafts is high, but because people want to pay a premium price for those handicrafts, cost considerations do not matter. And there are lots of people who are employed in this particular industry. And given certain social
Professor, actually, so to speak, I mean, there are two types of businesses in tourism. One is value, one is volume, right?
Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter what the price is. It matters
Right.
how you place it.
Very much so, very much so. But then, that depends on your tourism policy, how you basically play it with tour operators, agents, etc., etc. I believe Kashmir can do mass tourism will become difficult, but you can do upper class tourism and upper middle class tourism.
But do you see, I understood from your point that Jammu is going to get huge in tourists as soon as COVID subsides.
Yeah.
How about Kashmir?
Kashmir too. I mean, even without COVID subsiding, people were coming to Kashmir.
So that's a practical, quote unquote, practical assessment of situation.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I mean, the tourist arrivals in the early part of this year was breaking records. And then, of course, COVID came back with a bang. I mean, one of the vectors that pushed COVID in the valley was tourists who basically came with COVID. So one of the settled factors, if you law and order, you can control, and it is being controlled. Tourism is something that Jammu Kashmir can attract without any problems at all. How it makes tourism pay for itself is another matter altogether.